Hello friends, welcome back to more Reddit stories about entitled people, crazy people, and everything in between. Hope you're all doing awesome today. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't yet, and let's get right into today's Reddit posts. I must check for any place a person can hide during a fire drill? Okay, let's see how that works out for you. I worked in a building where I was a fire marshal. No extra money and a small amount of extra work, but someone has to do it. I was also first aider and somehow got landed with arranging the Christmas night out, so maybe the building manager saw me as an easy mark. The only advantage that I had was during a drill or real event, I had absolute power. Anyone not following an evacuation order swiftly was called up for disciplinary action. We had random drills, about 12 per year. My job was to ensure that the building was clear, basically pop my head in each office space, toilets, kitchens, etc., and see that nobody was there and then take a register outside. 5 minutes tops. Anyone booked into the building that was not registered by me was in trouble. The drills were sprung on me as well, as the building manager had the fire alarm keys and it made it a more realistic test. The building manager was a jerk. He wielded his small amount of power as much as he could and loved to report people for tiny infractions. During one drill, he hid in a cupboard, and then called me into his office for failing to ensure that the building was clear. Apparently some people may run and hide from a fire instead of leaving the building. I got a wagging finger and told to do better next time, or I would lose the marshal role. My quote, job was pretty safe, since nobody actually wanted to take over, and after hearing the story of me getting into trouble, they absolutely did not want the job. The building manager changed the fire marshal process instruction to include checking hiding places. This is a site instruction. He had no power to do so, I later found out. The alarm went off, the first after my failure to check cupboards. Everyone left, crossed the road, and stood in the assembly point, and this is very important, the rain and wind. I searched the top floor very carefully, opening up large cupboards, opening up boxes large enough to hide a person, looking under each desk in case someone was hiding. First floor, ditto. UK, so our first floor is US second, and our ground is US first. By now people were cold and wet and unhappy, but building manager refused to let them enter. He knew that it was coming. He was well prepared for the weather. Most people had light clothing on as the car park stood next to the building. They don't bother with coats in the 20-feet trip from car to building. Ground floor checked everywhere. And finally the basement where the boiler is, and is a general dumping ground for old files and junk. That took ages, but I was thorough. Very thorough. And slow. Thorough slow. Not taking the piss slow. I left the building, took the register, and a mass of sodden people headed back into the building. I was massively unpopular, until I showed them the PI that said I had to check all the spaces that someone could hide. They knew what happened at the last test and directed all the anger at the building manager. It was the equivalent of the angry villagers turning up at Castle Frankenstein with torches and pitchforks. People were furious at him some. One of the office staff was a union rep and reported him to the site safety officer, who went ballistic at him for telling me to remain in a potentially burning building longer than necessary. And a number of people went home to get dry clothes, and the company had to give them special leave to do so, or else the union would have had to get involved. He got crap from all sides: workers, union, management, and site safety officer. Most of the time nothing gets done when it is just you complaining. But it really gets done when the correct people are inconvenienced. Am I the a-hole for not paying my nephew's hospital bill? I have 4 kids. Alexis, 15, Lucas, 12, Ronnie, 11, and Ali, 8. Alexis has a lot of health issues. We've been in and out of the hospital for months. Something important to know is that Alexis has a PICC line, big take-home IV, and is getting blood thinner injections every day, so we do have needles and vials around the house. She also occasionally gets pain meds through her PICC line. My sister has 2 kids, Andrew, 12, and Alyssa, 9. She brought them to the house to play with my kids not too long ago. Alexis had a minor procedure a couple days before they came. I was showing my sister a video of Alexis at the house right after the procedure. She was still very high and it was hilarious. She's fine with me showing family these videos. Andrew came into the kitchen, heard the video, and asked what it was. I said that I was just showing his mom a video of Alexis after she got some pain meds. A few hours later, the kids were grabbing a snack, and Andrew took the container with needles and vials of the blood thinner out of the pantry. He asked what it is, and I said it's Alexis's medicine. My sister and I left to take our dogs for a walk, and I wanted to get a snack out of the pantry when we came back. I noticed Alexis's medicine box was moved, so I looked at it and one of the blood thinner vials was a lot more empty than before, and a needle/syringe was missing. Sister and I interrogated all of the kids and we found out Andrew gave himself a high dose of the blood thinner because he thought it was her pain meds and he wanted to get high. My sister rushed Andrew to the hospital and he stayed overnight. Now she's sending me the hospital bill because I was the one that left the medicine where he could get it. I'm refusing to pay because if my 11 and 12-year-old boys and 8-year-old girl know not to touch other people's medicines, her 12-year-old should be able to see a vial and syringe and not drug himself. She's threatening to sue and I really don't want to go the legal route with this. Am I the a-hole for not paying the hospital bills? Edit, I would like to clear this up. This is an injection, not an infusion. All you need to do is inject it into the subcutaneous tissue, and I don't even know if he did that correctly. Yeah, OP, it's definitely your fault that her kid decided to inject himself with the medicine he found. And it's not even like he found some pills and decided to take them. He literally injected blood thinners. Sounds like your sister is trying to place blame on you to avoid having to admit that her kid has a problem. She's trying to say that it's your fault that you left it somewhere he could get it. He's 12, it's not like you could put it anywhere that'd be out of reach for him. And I'm sure OP probably knows that they're gonna have to hide this stuff from now on. But by default, it's not something you really think you need to hide, because you don't expect someone to shoot up someone else's blood thinners. You need to leave my car alone. If you say so. This is not my story, but my friend Adam's. Adam is a retired police officer and this takes place in the mid-90s, back when Adam was a beat cop and maybe a year or two into his service. At the time the story takes place, a firebug had targeted several businesses over the course of a 3-month period. The fires were put out, but they were getting bigger and bigger, causing thousands of dollars in damage. Everyone was on edge and the police were patrolling the area every night to try and catch Mr. Firebug. On this particular night in the middle of February, Adam and his partner, Rick, drew the short stick and thus were assigned to patrol part of the area. While on patrol, he notices a classic Mercedes-Benz pulling up to a house, and a familiar lady dressed in a thick fur coat steps out. He groans. It's the wife of a local business owner that every officer in this town has had the displeasure to ticket for various parking/traffic violations. It would have been fine if she were a nice lady or something, but no. Her 3 default sentences were, "Don't you know who I am? Where's your manager/supervisor? And I'll have your job." Seriously, she was a Karen before Karens were even a thing. Rick points out to Adam that Karen had parked right by a fire hydrant, par for the course. Adam gets ready and steps out of the squad car. "Good evening, Mrs. Entitled, ma'am," Adam said. "What are you doing here?" Karen bellowed. Adam guessed that's the Karen version of the word hello. Working the beat. "You do know you parked next to a fire hydrant?" "So?" Karen said. "I'm suggesting you move it before I write you a ticket. I'm not in the mood for extra paperwork tonight." "Listen, you need to leave my car alone, or I'll have your job." With that, Karen storms off to the house, goes inside and slams the door. Adam thought, "If you say so," and proceeded to check the outside of the car for any more violations, and wishing that being a bitch was a federal offense. As he's putting the ticket under the windshield wiper, the call everyone's been dreading comes on the radio. A fire alarm has been triggered. The address? Right across the street. Adam looks over at the building and can see a faint orange glow in the windows on the 2nd floor. He reports the glow. He and Rick get ready in case Mr. Firebug decides to cross their path. Several officers arrive and set a perimeter around the building as the glow gets brighter and brighter. Unfortunately, by the time the fire department gets there, flashover happens and all the windows on the 2nd floor get blown out. It was so hot that Adam felt sweat form on his face. The fire department need to get the hoses set up, but Karen's car is in the way. Using safety hammers, they break the windows and run the hoses through, getting everything set up in record time. During all of the chaos, Karen comes out and she sounds like a banshee that had swallowed an air raid siren. She runs over and tries unhooking the hose from the hydrant. "What are you doing? My car is ruined." It took 2 officers to restrain her and bark at her to go inside and let everyone do their jobs. She actually listened and returned inside. Adam spent the rest of his shift helping with the fire and investigation. It was close to dawn, and he returned to the station to finish up. All he wanted was to go home and crawl into bed. That's when his supervisor calls Rick and him over and reports that Karen reported several $1,000s worth of damage. Not only had her windows broken, but water had gotten in and froze because it was, again, the middle of February. The supervisor asked them what happened, and they reported everything. Fortunately, the dashcam caught a recording of the event. The supervisor shook her head, laughed, and said, "Well, you had nothing to do with the car getting damaged, so I consider this closed." A few weeks later, they caught the firebug, a different business owner who was trying to commit insurance fraud. He figured that if several other buildings caught fire, nobody would think he was responsible for burning down his own business. Unfortunately, Karen never did seem to learn her lesson, so she was back to racking up tickets and being a thorn in the police's side. She did have to pay for the damages and the ticket Adam gave her. You're not a veteran, you're a woman. Due to popular demand, I've asked my friend Belle, a retired Army officer, for more dependopotamus stories, and she delivered this lovely gem. This took place several months after she retired, but she was still living in the town where she was last posted. She went to a local store to get some last-minute things for a party she and her husband Adam were hosting. Belle has veteran plates on her car, and at this particular store there's a parking space designated for veterans. So Belle parks in the spot when here comes our dependopotamus, aka Karen. The exchange went roughly as follows. "What are you doing here? Wearing your husband's rank?" "Excuse me?" "You're not a veteran, you're a woman. Move or I will have you towed." "No." "Get back here." Karen reached out to grab her, but Belle moved out of the way and went inside, thinking that would be the end of it and pitying the poor person this woman was married to. Alas, it was only just the beginning. When Belle got home, Adam asked her if she'd seen Facebook. Belle said nope, why? Adam then showed her. Our dependopotamus had stalked Belle through the store, took several pictures of her, and posted a nasty post in the military spouse support group for this particular area about how Belle, quote, wore her husband's rank and took the place away from a deserving veteran. And my husband and I have put up with this crap. Among other colorful things. Belle just shook her head, rolled her eyes, and went to preparing for the party. That night, people started arriving. One of the people invited was a major that Belle had mentored during her last posting and had a good relationship with. He arrived, exchanged the usual pleasantries, and then said, "Let me introduce you to my wife, Karen. Karen, this is Belle Smith, my former general." According to Belle, the look on Karen's face when she saw Belle's face was priceless. Alright guys, that's going to be all for today. Thank you for watching. Be sure to leave a like if you enjoyed, and also don't forget to subscribe. So take care, and I'll see you all next time.